Hello, geometry kiddos. Today we're going to talk about mid-segments. So we have one more vocabulary term that you need to know about triangles. Already you should know things like perpendicular bisector, angle bisector, altitude. In the last lesson, don't forget we talked about a median that created a centroid. Okay, so we have perpendicular bisector, angle bisector, altitude, and median. Altitude, and median. And now we're going to talk about a mid-segment. So what the heck is that? Well, if I want to make a mid-segment, what you're going to do is you're going to find the midpoints of two of the sides. Now, if you have a ruler, get a ruler out. But what I'm really going to do is just kind of estimate this midpoint here. So a midpoint of AB would be right about there. And I'm going to call that X. And the midpoint of AC would be about here. And I'm going to call that Y. And if I connect X and Y, you should notice some things. XY looks like it's parallel to BC, and it is. Okay, if we constructed this perfectly, it would be perfectly parallel. Okay, well, what that means is if those are perfectly parallel, this angle and that angle right there would be corresponding angles. And that means they would be congruent angles. Same can be said here. These would be corresponding and congruent. And one more thing, instead of corresponding, if I look at this angle B right here, this angle above B would not be the same size as B, but those would be supplementary because we would also have some same side interior angles that are supplementary. And then the same thing over here. I would have a supplementary angle up there. So that's kind of cool. And then the other thing you could do is if you got a ruler out and you measured XY and you measured BC, you're going to see that BC is twice as long as whatever XY is. And that's not a fluke. It happens every time you draw a midsegment for a triangle. Okay, so what are the implications of one relationship? XY and BC are parallel. And if we measure them, we will find that XY is 1/2 of BC. And I didn't mean to put the bar over that. There we go. All right. So when you draw a midsegment, it is half of the bottom and it is parallel to the bottom. If I wanted to, I could just stop talking right now. That's the lesson. That's what you need to know. We're going to do some practice about it, but that's all I'm going to tell you. All right. That's all you really need. So vocab you need to know. What's a midsegment? A midsegment is a segment connecting two midpoints. Wow, they named that appropriately. Mid-segment is a segment connecting midpoints. That works. What are the properties of a midsegment? It is parallel to the base of the triangle, and it doesn't always have to be the bottom. It's just basically going to be parallel to one of the remaining sides, okay? And the midsegment is half the length of that base. All right, parallel to the base, half the length. Now let's do some exercises. If I look at this picture right here, it says find X. Well, first thing is this a midsegment? Well, if I'm not sure if it's a midsegment, I'm going to look and realize that these dashes are here, which means I have a midpoint on the left. These dashes are here, which means I have a midpoint on the right. Therefore, X is a midsegment, and the midsegment is supposed to be half of the bottom. So X is 15. And then if they wanted me to give even more information, if the top part's 9, the bottom part's 9. If the bottom part's 10, the top part's 10. And now I'm just going to go back and answer their questions. Find X. I did that. It's 15. Find the perimeter of triangle ABC. Well, that just means find the length of all three sides and add them together. So this would be 18. That would be 20. This is 30. So 20 plus 30 plus 18 is 68. Find X and Y again. Now in this one, I might want to tilt my head or like turn the paper. You don't have to, but it's sometimes nicer to make it look like your midsegment is parallel to the bottom. Again, though, you don't really have to do that. So if I look at this, I know it's a midsegment because of the dashes here that shows me I'm connecting two midpoints. All right. So if I had any lengths at all, I would know the middle is half the bottom, but I don't seem to want lengths this time. I want angles. So I'm going to remember that these are parallel. Okay. And then whatever's in this corner is corresponding with whatever's in that corner. So X is 50. And then same thing here, whatever's in this corner is the same as what's in that corner. I don't know what that is yet. But what I do see here is that 50 and the Y and the 60, they're all part of a triangle. And just like what we had learned before, triangle angles have to add to 180. So 50 plus 60 is 110, which means Y has to be 70. All right, so the parallelism leads us to knowing about angles, and then the half the length thing is just, half the length. All right, number 3, equilateral triangle GLI has a perimeter of 30. Okay, so all the way around is 30, which means it's got to be 10, 10, and 10. Find the perimeter of NOD if O, D, and N are midpoints. Okay, so I want the perimeter of this thing if these are all midpoints. Okay, well, if those are midpoints, this would be 5, and this would be 5, and that would be 5, and that would be 5, and this would be 5, and this would be 5. That's cool. And if those are midpoints, this would be half of the entire bottom. Well, the bottom's 10. Half the bottom's 5. Bing! You know what else? This would be half of what it's across from, which is another 5, and another 5 here. So the perimeter of NOD is 15. Ta-da! All right. BD is a midsegment. Solve for the value of X. Okay, there's no angles in this picture, but I do have my midsegment, and it's supposed to be half of the bottom. So 2x plus 2 is equal to 1/2 of 3x plus 9. Here's the thing, though. Working with a 1/2 can get frustrating if I don't have even things or when I have x's. So another way to write that is to say instead of the middle is half the bottom, another way to say it is 2 times the middle equals the bottom. That's easier to work with. So if I double the middle, I get 4x plus 4. The bottom is 3x plus 9, and just have to solve for x now. So I'm going to subtract 4, subtract 3x, and get x equals 5. Cool. So find the value of x. Done. Then it says, find the length of BD and AE. Well, BD is 2x plus 2. So 2 times 5 plus 2, that's 12. And then 3 times 5 plus 9 would be 15 plus 9. That's 24. I like that because it shows that the middle is half the bottom. Done. And then they say, all right, E is 63 degrees. And I've scribbled all over this, so I'm going to erase that. And say, now I'm dealing with angles. E is 63. Find CDB. So CDB, that'd be this one. Oh, those are corresponding angles. So that would be 63. Give the reason, because if lines are parallel, corresponding angles are congruent. And that, my friends, is midsegments. There are 2 pages of homework that follow this. Just some practice. Take it as it goes. Just remember the rules and you're good to go. That entire lesson can be summed up in 30 seconds. If you have a triangle and you connect 2 of the midpoints, you get a midsegment. That midsegment in the middle is going to be half the length of the bottom, and it's going to be parallel to the bottom, so you get a bunch of equal or supplementary angles. Done. Enjoy your day, everyone.